people outside of the building that you could tell that something's weird about this building?
There are sensors.
There are sensors. Got it.
Right.
And what are some of the things you guys found? You know, thousands of pages. What are some things your team and you and your team found where it's, why would they hide something like this from? Why would they keep this away from us?
Well, they had electromagnetic devices that were so-called free energy. They had technologies that would take water, as you mentioned, and do the hydrolysis past the Faraday constant, where it would be at certain voltages and frequency, you get a magnetically charged hydrogen and oxygen gas you can burn, get energy. The only pollution is water vapor. You know, all of those sort of technologies. But then there were other things that were even stranger, where you can cause basically atomic changes in the electron shell so that you can move up and down the periodic table at certain frequencies, magnetic field frequencies, so that you could theoretically take tin and turn it into gold. Transmutation, it's like the alchemist, but it's high tech. And these are very old discoveries. And so one of the big problems is when you ask this question, why wouldn't we have it? The economic power is really about, you know, the money. It's about dollars. But when you start talking about trillions and dozens or hundreds of trillions of dollars, now you're talking about something that is an impact that's way beyond, you know, inventing a cell phone or even the internet. This is way past that, because our entire planet is running on an antiquated grid and energy paradigm from the late 1800s. And if you take nuclear power plants, the mid-40s. And what I remind people is, you really think fundamental energy generation and propulsion technologies haven't gone forward since 1945? This is ridiculous. But those technologies, which prompted these national security patent acts and seizure laws, both had applications. They could be sold to Congress because there were legitimate state secrets. You didn't want to just let someone leak out, you know, your design for a nuclear warhead, for example. But on the other hand, there are things that would, technologies that would greatly benefit humanity. And let me remind people, this would literally end all pollution on Earth, but would also end poverty on the planet within about 20 years. Why? Right now, you have 3 billion people on the planet. The Economist came out with an article, I think 2 years ago, about this, that don't even have energy to cook their food. So they're like cutting down any brush in the desert and the rainforest just to be able to have some charcoal to cook food. That's 3,000 million people. This isn't sustainable. This is not a way to have a planet, right? So these technologies would change that. And many, many people in these covert programs agree this should change. But you're stepping on some very big toes. I mean, you're talking the kind of macroeconomic power globally that is way past anything that the president deals with. And that's the problem. Because on the one hand, it's some people have told me who are in this system, it's like the cure is worse than the disease. That to release this, it'd be too disruptive. I said, yes, it should have been released 100 years ago. When it would have been transition, would have been easy. But now look at the mess we're in because of this secrecy, but also the illegal application of it in the last 60 years. Now, that is what Congress right now is trying to grapple with. But it's a big mistake for the public to think, because you're the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee or the co-chairman, like
you're a nobody,
like Mr. Rubio.
Yeah,
those folks are told either nothing or some version of a lie that they want to be told. This is what happened to Mr. Trump, by the way, in his first term, and also Mr. Pence, because a friend of Mr. Pence's family works with me, and we found out what happened. But the problem with all of this is what has happened to democracy and oversight and we the people. But also, when you talk about we have a free market economy and capitalism, do we? I mean, if the most important discoveries in sciences of the last 100 years have been ruthlessly confiscated and kept secret, no, we have a faint shadow. We have a managed economy. You know, it's not quite as managed as, say, China's or the Soviet Union's or Venezuela, and controlled, but it's still controlled and managed. It's a mistake to think it's free market. It isn't. The only way it could be free is that if the technologies that were not weaponized, and this is when you mentioned that, Mr. Trump's uncle said, no, these are fine. They're not going to hurt anything. Well, they wouldn't hurt. It's not like they're dangerous. It's just that it's going to hurt you if you own, a $3 trillion oil field off of Venezuela or whatever, and these big interests. So I think this is, and I'm not saying that everybody in the oil industry knows about this. They're not. They're just doing their jobs. But I'll tell you, there's a Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies chairperson trying to come forward. And
Fortune 50 chairperson that's trying to come forward?
Yeah, former chairman. He's getting up there. He's about 79 or 80.
He's still active? Oh, former chairman.
But he has the documents and the information. He wants to come forward with them. But when he reached out to me last year, they threatened him and his family and his grandchildren.
Is he a money guy? Is he financially free?
Oh, sure. I mean, my God.
So how do they threaten them? What do they say? How do you threaten a person like that? What are we going to do to you?
They just kill your whole family.
No, who calls a person like that?
Really spooky people. I've had them appear in my life and threaten me. I say, buzz off. But I've had 4 people on my team killed.
4 people in your team killed?
I have. And when Mr. Grush was asked about this at the House Oversight hearing last year, he said yes. And because when Mr. Grush was working with people that I had been briefing to give information so he could begin to drill down on this. But he was not a direct whistleblower witness. He's called a whistleblower, but he's not. He didn't directly deal with the technology or the programs. He was investigating them on behalf of the folks that I was given information to tell them where to go. Like I told them exactly where to go in the high desert of California to find this stuff, or wherever. So, but someone asked. One of the members of the committee, I think it was Congressman Burchett, who I've been working with, asked, "Well, have people been killed?" And of course, a few months earlier, I think it was January of last year, there was a peripheral person on that team who was killed because he stuck his nose in the wrong place. So people are very naive, frankly, if they don't think this kind of corrupt power. Think of the worst thing you've ever heard about the mafia or the mob on steroids, hypercharged on steroids.
But let's stay on that.
That's what you're dealing with here. So they're thugs.
4 people that were killed on your team, they're public. But how were they killed, and how recent was it?
Oh, this goes back in the 90s.
What were you talking about? And what were they talking about or digging that cost them their lives?
They were deep cover sources giving me information.
So they had jobs
before I had good security in place, and I didn't have what I have in place now, which I call.
Can you say what they did for a living or no?
Well, there were various. Well, one was a military naval intelligence guy. One was CIA. And one was an assistant of mine.
It was an assistant of yours?
I'm a good friend.
How did he get killed?
She.
How did she get killed?
It was basically a chemical weapon that was induced a very aggressive cancer very quickly. And, I have an FBI lady on my team who's a special agent. She said, we have 150 substances like that.
150 substances to inject cancer into somebody?
Or brush up against someone or do something that will kill them, yeah.
Brush up against somebody, like there was a movie I watched about the brushing up to somebody that.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's not just a movie. In real life, they can do that as well.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so let's go back to this. So this
is, but let's go back to the point I'm making, and that is, people are afraid, and they should be. Now, this is why, going back to '94, I asked the president at the time, Clinton, to do an executive order protecting high-value whistleblowers and witnesses, whether corporate or government, military, CIA, and no one would do it. I have a big announcement. I'm saying this on your show now because it starts June 20th. There is a special access project that has been stood up that is going to provide this kind of security and protection to whistleblowers and high-value witnesses that are been sitting on the fence coming forward. This is a big announcement. I hope this goes viral because that's what we need. Now, I asked the Congress to put that in a bill, but they're not quite at the point where they realize lethal force has been used. They're still a little bit naive. And so since lethal force has been authorized, in fact, not long ago, there was a meeting in a SCIF talking about engaging the wet works. Wet works is a term for assassinations. It used to be an old Soviet term, wet from blood. But those sort of operations is not some kind of movie. It's real. I've dealt with it. And, this chairman of this huge, former chairman of this big Fortune 50 corporation, he regrets what he did, and he has stated to us that the whole world decades ago could have had quote unquote free energy with these technologies. And look at the state it's in.
So let me ask.
He really wants to come forward, but he's scared. So I'm saying, look, I'm going to just try to set this up.
I see what you're saying.
So this is a big announcement that there's, I can't say what agency it's under, but it is an authorized special access project that can monitor security and provide security and
to whistleblowers.
To whistleblowers, yes, and witnesses, people who have been in these projects, seen things that want to come forward, or they may have documents like this gentleman.
Is this an agency that has a lot of credibility today?
I don't think any government agency in the United States has a lot of credibility today.
Is this a three-letter agency that we're familiar with?
It would certainly be known by any educated American, but I can't comment beyond that. But I will say that the people in it are all folks who had been in special forces, and they are not in the military now because you can't do that. Of course, the military can't act domestically.